you ever support a violent sexual
point?
predator as president? Would you ever support a
Good
violent
boy,
sexual
good
predator
boy.
as president? Would you ever support a violent sexual predator as president? Do you accept that a person would be a violent sexual predator if they engaged in sexual violence? Do you accept that somebody would be a violent sexual predator if they engaged in sexual violence? Do you accept that somebody would be a violent sexual predator if they engaged in sexual violence? Do you accept that the definition of sexual violence would be any sexual action that's unconsensual?
Sure, but bite and sniff young girls.
Perfect. So you do accept that sexual violence would be any sexual action that's unconsensual. Anyways, so you accepted that you wouldn't support somebody as president if they're a violent sexual predator, and then you accepted somebody would be a violent sexual predator if they engaged in sexual violence, and then you accepted that sexual violence would be any sexual conduct that's unconsensual. So in other words, somebody would be a violent sexual predator if they engage in any sexual conduct that's unconsensual. In other words, you wouldn't support somebody as president if they engage in sexual conduct that's unconsensual. Donald Trump has engaged in sexual conduct that's unconsensual, and he's admitted to it too. A really good example of this would be him admitting to barging into the dressing rooms of naked women and girls at the beauty pageants in which he owned on the Howard Stern radio show in 2005 when he said he would just barge in there because
You never
he had the
said
ability
dressing
to
room,
because
by
he's
the
the
way.
owner. You accepted that there are dressing rooms, and we accept that in this women's dressing room, Donald Trump looked at the naked bodies of women and girls. So you accept that is unconsensual sexual conduct, and you accept that therefore for that reason you won't support Trump as president.
No, I still am because that.
You remember earlier when I asked you?
He was
that if
never
you'd ever-
convicted of any assault.
Do you
by the
remember?
way.
Do you remember earlier? Do you remember earlier when I asked you if you'd ever support a violent sexual predator as president, and you said no? And then I asked
Was
you
he
if
ever
engaging in
convicted?
sexual violence. It doesn't matter.
I mean, it kind of does matter if he
So
wasn't.
okay, to what premise of my argument does a conviction or the lack thereof reject? You know what else outside of a conviction shows that they did this beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt? Him admitting to it.
Okay, well, he was saying that to be cool or fun.
You're saying that to be funny. So you think that he finds it funny to engage in sexual violence? Okay, so yeah, you think that Donald Trump thinks it's funny to engage in sexual violence. Are you saying that Donald Trump finds it funny to engage in sexual violence?
No, I think that was a little.
So then he wasn't saying
joke
it to be
here.
funny. Okay, so he said it because he was around people that thought engaging in sexual violence was funny, but it's
Yeah,
not
perhaps.
something that
I
he
mean,
found
I
funny.
haven't talked to him.
Okay,
so-
what's the reason to believe this?
I mean, Howard Stern is a good friend of his, and he's also a
Okay,
connection.
Howard Stern was a good friend of him. Therefore, he was not telling the truth. Therefore, he was saying something that he thought Howard Stern would find funny that he didn't personally find funny. Well, actually, he said at the beginning of the clip that this is one of the funniest things he's done. So we know that he found it funny. So do you accept that Donald Trump finds sexual violence funny?
I mean, it was in 2005. Times were different.
Oh, okay.
No,
So in
like,
2005, did Donald Trump find sexual violence funny?
No, I doubt it. I heavily.
Oh,
doubt
okay.
that.
Then why did he say that it was funny? Why did he say it was funny if you doubt that he found it funny?
Because he was being taped. Some people say things on video.
Oh, okay.
to
So
be funny.
so not only did he not mean it when he said he'd barge into their dressing rooms, but he also didn't mean it when he said it was funny. Well, now this is kind of getting to a really unrealistic, nearly like cult-like rejection of reality.